Welcome to our series on taking the stress out of habit change.
We're two health professionals hooked on habit change with a mindfulness twist.
Dr. Jan, I love working with you and mostly learning from you. You have this really practical approach to behavior change. As a psychologist who specializes in working with executives and professionals, but you pull in your background of corporate business experience and your expertise in mindfulness with psychology. And it's such a unique and refreshing approach.
And Janet, I love your radical approach to exercise. This blending you're doing, drawing on your background in clinical exercise physiology as a certified health coach, but the way you're putting that together, the motivation science, the movement science, and the mindfulness, in this package that's just perfect for anyone experiencing pain, fatigue, or just low motivation.
So we met on LinkedIn in 2020, and we quickly discovered that there's this synergy between our areas of expertise and our passions. So we decided to join forces.
And we're so excited to share with you the fruits of this collaboration of how to take the stress out of habit change and make it stick.
Hi, Jan. It's great to be back with you again.
Hi there.
I'm so excited to be doing this episode after our conversation about our stressful weeks, that you had a really stressful professional week where it was very intense, and I had a stressful personal week about a month or so ago. And our conversation about how we came through that, just talking as friends and colleagues, really, I think we both realized that there's a lot of stuff in there that we want to share. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
do this episode that just kind of came out of our stressful weeks.
As we get better about taking the stress out of habit change,
Yeah.
then when we do get stressed, it's we somehow get through it a little better
Yeah.
and get back on track a little faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we both learned those habits really help us. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So why don't we start with your professional stressful week and
Okay. Yeah.
and kind of debrief that a little bit. So I always like to start with where you're at right now. Like, what is left over when
Yeah.
you think about that stressful week? What are you noticing mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually as you think about that week, now in this moment?
Yeah. I'd say top of mind for me is how thankful I am that I have these small moments many times,
Mm.
practices in place enough that they do kick in for me at certain points. And also in the ways in which I wasn't able to do it, but I'm so aware of the potential
Mm.
for it to help me even more as I move forward, if that makes
Wow.
sense.
Yes, it does. It sounds like you really learned a lot from that week, not
Yeah.
only just got through it.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that. Like, what went well? What do you feel the best about when you look back at that week with those small moments many times and that approach?
Yeah. I guess I would say that, again, having a mindset of small moments many times that I'm doing these practices,
Mm.
it does build up a reserve
Mm.
of capacity or strength or whatever. And I don't know quite how to pinpoint that. And it'd be interesting if that was actually researched
Yeah.
somehow, or maybe it has been, I don't know. But I'm just glad that I've been doing these practices for a while, long enough. It really seemed to help sustain me in some way that I can't quite identify. But just to be a little more specific about what the stressfulness of it is the stressfulness of the issue, the counseling issue with the couple
Mm.
I was working with. It was really, really intense,
Mhm.
and not just emotionally intense, but the time frames. We were doing sessions that would last anywhere from 2 to 4, even 6 hours at a time.
Wow.
So it was just, and
Yeah.
we were doing it because it was helpful. But
Yeah.
it's like that's what we were trying to get to, a place where it would be a good place to end for now.
Yeah.
But just the just like 6 hours. Now, granted,
Wow.
we would take like a little bathroom break a couple of
Yeah.
times. That was about it, you know. But
Yeah.
but it was intense emotionally and it
Wow.
was intense physically of just
Yeah.
the amount of time that we
Yeah.
were investing in that intensity. So,
Wow.
yes. So, I would be very tired or exhausted sometimes after these sessions. So, when you get taken over by something like that, you're
Mhm.
not mindful. You're
Right.
just in it, and I
Yeah.
think here's what I like. I like the lack of judgment that I didn't expect myself to be mindful. Or
Mm.
like I heard you say in one of your videos, this misconception that mindful means you're calm all the
Yeah.
time,
Right. Right.
you know, or just something,
Unflappable.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's just,
Yeah.
beyond, what other humans experience that I would get totally immersed in that, and then it
Yeah.
would be over, and
Yeah.
I would kind of regroup
Yeah.
and then refresh and then move back in. But I didn't expect myself to be totally mindful
Yeah.
or aware during that.
Yeah.
And I think that's more real world or more what most of us. But when I would uh, rest, I would
Yeah.
rest deeply or
Mm.
really.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I would like to say a little more about that with the rest.
Yeah.
This is probably the number one most interesting thing that I learned from all of this
Mm.
is that, again, my bias from my background would have been it can't be just small moments. It has to be
Mm.
lots of long, long, long moments, you know. And
Yes.
I would say this really got tested during this
Mm.
period. And
Yeah.
just like the research is showing, small moments many times is not just as effective as long periods of practice, it's more effective. And
Yeah.
I experienced that personally, but especially
Wow.
in this concept of rest.
Mm.
And what I mean by that, I'm thinking of a one of the my favorite meditations from 10% Happier by Jeff Warren is called Taking Back Lazy.
Huh. I like that
And
title.
he talks about how there are some meditation teachers that only teach rest. That's all they
Mm.
teach.
Mm.
And they're teaching you how to rest when
Yeah.
you're sitting, when you're lying, even
Yeah.
when you're moving.
Yeah.
So I just find that so intriguing
Wow.
because
Yes.
it could take a few moments to rest.
Yes.
The rest was deeper in a way that I'm not familiar with. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
you only had 5 minutes here, but how
Yeah.
deeply you can
Wow.
rest in even 5 minutes
Yeah.
and be able to, and again, you're not necessarily going back and totally refreshed and recharged, but it's like, okay, yes, I would like 5 minutes more, but
Right.
no, but then again, that's real life. You don't always
Yeah.
have more than that.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of meeting the challenge of how to bring mindfulness into everyday life.
Yeah.
And again, this concept of rest is just, like I said, it's just really intriguing to me.
Yes. It's huge. And you were practiced up in the ability to rest well because
Yes,
you had been practicing mindful movement. You had been practicing not using stress as a motivator, but really intentionally moving or meditating very present and very kind. And you were practiced up on that. So you were able to insert it and keep that stress cycle going rather than stay in a stress state or expect that you were going to stay calm all the time. You were able to be in that stress cycle, which it's supposed to be. And but it sounds like that practice really paid off
yeah,
that you could pull it out when you needed it.
yeah. That was just really, really helpful.
Yeah. Wow, that's nice. That sounds really affirming that
Yes.
you're on the right track. What you're doing is working because it standed the test of these long marathon sessions. But let me
Yes.
just say that couple is so lucky to have you. Holy cow. I don't know a lot of counselors who do those long marathon sessions. So they're pretty lucky to have you, Jan, with your kind of endurance and your practice allowed you to do that. If you didn't have those skills, how could you do a 6-hour counseling session if you didn't have that ability to rest and recharge in those moments that you had?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty incredible. It sounds like it makes you a stronger professional and allows you to use your skills even better.
Yes. So I'm just very, like I said, top of mind for me is I'm just thankful that
Yeah.
I've been doing these practices enough that they have taken hold. And even when I can't access them,
Yeah.
okay, well, you just have to fasten your seatbelt and get through
Right.
these times, and then
Yeah.
reconnect and recharge.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. I'm curious how moving mindfully was used during that time too.
It certainly was movement too, particularly stretching, or when you've been sitting,
Yeah.
or like even to take a those little bio breaks that we
Yes.
were taking. You know,
Right.
I mean, again, it's not like it necessarily has to be super mindful. It's just that
Mhm.
it's a bio break. Your body is letting you know you need to
Mm.
get up and go to the bathroom, or you need some water or
Yeah.
something, that
Yeah.
you need to do something. So you're just paying attention to it. And it's
Yeah.
in this very mundane,
Yeah.
everyday
Yeah.
way,
Right.
So that was there, first and foremost, but also just I would say this ability to pause,
Mm.
like I'm doing even right now, just to
Yeah.
pause for
Yeah.
a moment. But again, when you have a strong inner pusher, I do, and many of my clients do,
Yeah.
uh, you can like just get on a
Hmm.
track, and
Right.
you're just rolling, and even just this brief moment of a
Yeah.
pause. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it's just when I'm speaking.
Mm.
It's just a pause.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that would have that much ability,
Yeah.
that little nanosecond of rest?
Hmm.
And here's the cool thing about it, it's not just restful and helping, it actually makes you more effective.
Yeah.
Because when we're running and running and running and we can't stop talking,
Yeah.
or, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
even in the way in which I interact with clients has changed more, in that
Mm.
I will say, may I interject something? It's like literally pausing and asking for permission before I jump in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or may I say something? Or, could we stop here for a second? And I want to make sure that I'm keeping up with everything you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
Uh,
practicing physically pausing and being mindful and intentional pausing has transferred into mental pausing too when you notice that things are kind of off the rails.
yeah.
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 Yeah. Sweet.
So I definitely feel it making me more effective, and more respectful of my
Yeah.
clients. It's like asking to interject,
Mm.
and being able to pause and, am I getting this right? Here's what I
Yeah.
think I heard, you saying, did I get that right?
Nice.
Uh, that makes you more effective.
Yeah. Sounds like this week was really uh, very informative for you. I'm wondering how you want to kind of package that and how you're using it moving forward or how you want to use that
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah. I would say again, even though I'm not able to do this 100% all the time perfectly, etc., it doesn't matter, in that I see the potential of this. I see how much this is helping me.
Mm.
And it's just like, okay, it's reinforcing.
Yeah.
Like your brain picks up on that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is good. This feels
Yeah.
good. This is cool.
Yeah.
That automatically makes you want to continue to practice it, to delve into it,
Mm.
to embody it even more, because
Yeah.
you see how much it will help the next time.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been
Yeah,
really aware of your body and what it's telling you in everything you're doing. And that mindfulness is not just up here, it's very much embodied. And
yeah,
that's allowing you to develop these habits because that's where habits form is to be very
yes,
aware of what your body is telling you about how this is working.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, I'm just excited about this in retrospect, and looking
Mm.
forward to how I've already got some things in place, and it's just a matter of continuing to cultivate them.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on
Yeah. Yeah.
that week, and not only just getting through it, but letting it strengthen your habits by not making it stressful and not making it forceful, but just awareness alone
Yeah.
has really enforced your habits. So,
Yes.
yeah,
And the interesting thing about this talk today is how, we have a way we can delve into that on a professional level, and then you have the more personal experience.
yeah,
And we wanted to highlight both of those today because you can see how it works in both
yeah,
areas.
yeah. I think it's so interesting how both of us had the same week in different
Yes.
aspects of our lives. It was really interesting. Yeah, yeah,
Yes. So as you're just, in the moment with it now, what's
yeah,
here for you now and looking back on that
yeah.
week that you
So,
had?
it's so funny because the week was, my dad passed away. And, and so looking back on that, you would think it would bring up all kinds of stress and kind of, oh, I don't even want to think about it. But when I think about that week, I remember how peaceful I felt. And it still amazes me when I think about that week. It really felt peaceful. And um, it's nice to think about that. It's nice to have that memory
Mhm.
of that major event in my life and being able to look back on it. And I think, like you said, gratitude. I think gratitude was the huge piece of that. But I was grateful to be able to be there. I was grateful to have the time. I was able to focus on what I was grateful for there. And I think that created that undertone of peace. Um, but yeah, just thinking of it and feeling peaceful is such a gift to have
Yeah.
that memory of peace.
Yeah.
And my dad had Alzheimer's for 10 years. And so it was a gradual goodbye.
Mhm.
It was the long goodbye.
Mhm.
And it made me really appreciate the gift of memory.
Yeah.
So that looking back, he was very zen because he didn't have any memory of anything else going on. So he was always in the moment. He was always very mindful and present.
Yes.
And that was pretty cool to be part of, to be in the moment with him. That was kind of a lesson in mindfulness in and of itself. But it made me realize that how valuable memories are, especially those ones that bring up feelings of peace or joy,
Yes.
how valuable those are because you can recall those. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. And then can you is there anything specific you can share about what was helpful? What went well
yeah,
during that week?
yeah. As I look back, I realized I have in my regular life, I kind of have habits that I do that um, keep me grounded. The routine piece of it keeps me grounded in things that I do that make me happy and feel good. And I realized after day one or two that I had naturally found my way to develop a routine while I was there at my parents' house for a week.
Okay.
And in the busyness of it all, I would get up and I took my yoga mat out. Luckily, I had it in my car already. And I would just do a little bit of yoga and I listened to one of my favorite meditations as I was doing it, the mountain meditation. It's one of my favorites. And I listened to that as I did yoga. So the combination of that real grounding meditation and movement. And it
Mhm.
was it was 10 minutes long. So
Yeah.
I knew I could fit it in. I knew I could do it before anyone else got up. And I made sure I added those elements that I know and make me feel better being outside. So I go out on the porch where I could
Mhm.
see nature
Mhm.
and and having that ritual piece, having my tea in hand. I love having my tea in hand. It's very comforting for me. And those things that I've noticed that really, help me to be present. And so that's, I think that I was glad for the gift of routine. I was glad for the gift of knowing what routines ground me and then
Yes.
being able to transfer them into a
Yes.
different environment, a different place. I wasn't able to do all the things that I normally do, but I was able to pull in the key elements and plug them in into what I
Yes.
could fit in there, given the time, given the environment, given the resources that I had. And they worked.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was doing exactly what I normally do. It was because I added the elements that really internally make me feel grounded and present and
Yeah.
peaceful and gather up all of my strengths and
Yeah.
remind me of my strengths, and being able to do it in that 10-minute bout. I walked away off that mat as if I had exercised for 30 minutes,
Right.
and I felt great. And so I think I'm so grateful that I had the routine that I knew what elements were important, the essential elements that I needed, um, and that I gave myself the time to do it. And then, like you, there were many moments through the day I'd slip into the bathroom and do some stretching, some mindful stretching. I would take a walk with my mom and just talk with her and be very present and
Yeah.
grateful for the time with her. And
Yeah.
I think my big takeaway from the week was that gratitude really changes everything. I kept coming back to gratitude. What am I grateful
Hmm.
for here?
Yeah.
And that really shifted my awareness to, oh, this is an opportunity. This is a chance. I can use this. And I think it changed everything. It really opened me up to not being caught up in the stress as much,
Mm-hmm.
but to see where the opportunity for presence and depth were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To me,
yeah. So all those skills were there. Yeah.
yeah. And what I'm noting is what I like so much about what you're saying is it's such an antidote to I don't know what you too much of a fitness mindset. We
Mm,
think we get rigid or it has to be
yeah.
this way,
Yes.
and it can be such a downfall because then
Yeah.
when you're rigid like that and
Yeah.
you can't you're out of your routine or you're out of your
Yep.
usual space or there's somebody around or whatever,
Yeah.
that it can totally disrupt and take down your routine, and
Yeah.
then and it feels bad. I mean, then you get back,
Yeah.
it's like, "Well, I failed and I have to start all
Right.
over again,"
Right.
and you have
Right.
to or at least for me, there'd be a shame attack in there somewhere
Yeah.
maybe, "Oh,
Right.
yeah, I couldn't keep up my usual rigid routine."
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
what I love about what you said, it wasn't about the routine, it was about the elements that were important, that made you feel
Mm,
good. It's like this
yeah.
is actually or the benefit of doing this or the why of doing
Mm,
versus
yes.
here's what I have to do and how long and,
Right.
exactly this way. This is
Yeah.
what no, this is why I do this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. It's very grounded in that core why, which makes it not a should, like, oh, this is a task that I can put off
Yes,
until next week because it's not convenient for me to do it.
yes,
Because it's grounded in my core why, it's a resource for self care that I took with me, packed it in my bag, literally, and took it with me. And,
yes,
and that, yeah, absolutely. It shifted that whole shifting the idea of fitness being something you do, to achieve to fitness being what it's supposed to be, which is its literal definition, which is having the skills and ability and the energy to do everyday life with energy left over to
mhm,
handle emergencies and have fun. That's
yeah,
the literal definition of fitness is
yeah,
can you do everyday life stuff? And do you have some energy left over so you can handle these stressors? And do you have energy left over to go have some fun? And
yeah,
that's what exercise is supposed to be is practice. And I think we
yes,
both kind of found this that we were practiced up,
yes,
and we got the fruits of our practice during these times. And yeah, not perfect. There's a lot of takeaways from
yes.
that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I also love the word you mentioned, it's a resource, or I
Mm,
always like to think about, this whole concept in terms of energy management
yeah. Yes.
and how,
Yeah.
what we're describing is a resource for energy management,
Yes.
exercise as a resource for energy management, or any
Yeah.
of these mindfulness practices.
Right. Right.
So, just like me, looking forward to what next, or how do you
Mhm.
see this moving forward into the future for you? What you learned
Yeah.
in this week?
That's such a good question. And it dovetails into that energy management that when I got home, I was exhausted. I had so much energy when I was there, and I think kind of the hitting that wall, and then I think a lot of people who experience grief experience that too. When the events are
Yes,
over and you get back to everyday life, and you've got all these other things you've got to think about, that grief is still there, taking energy from you,
yes,
and recognizing that grief is there, and I was grateful that I was able to name it as grief and understand grief enough to say, yeah, I know that I've still got this ball of energy called grief that's
yeah,
taking a lot of work in the background as I go back to my everyday life. And so I had to meet myself where I was and say, ooh, energy drop. Okay, now what?
yeah,
Now, how can mindfulness and movement and self care, how can those be used for self care now? Okay, this is what I need now. And then able to again pull in those resources. What can I do? and recover in that recovery phase
So it
to
sounds
kind of
like
get
you had
back.
to give yourself more rest when you
Yeah.
got home.
Yeah. And more self-compassion when I got home, right? To say, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a hard phase. Yeah. This
Yeah.
after phase. And some people experience it too. I know the second year for a lot of people in grief, is really hard. And so there's no timeline for that level of self-compassion
Yes.
and recovery piece. And so always that mindfulness piece of saying, ooh, it's a low energy day. Ooh, it's a big grief day. Okay, what do I
Yeah.
need? What do you need now? And
Yeah.
I always say to my clients, like you would say to your kids, if they're having a tough day, all right, I'm sorry. What can I do to help you? And being able
Yeah.
to turn that in. And that's sometimes the hardest thing to do is, oh, I'm
Yes.
so sorry you're hurting. What do you need right now? You know?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, going forward, I've learned a lot, and it just reinforced this sense of these key elements. I really appreciate those key elements, and now applying them to different situations,
Yeah.
in real
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
And I love the way that we're kind of taking this series and making it big. That
Yeah.
it's not just about habit change in terms of exercise
Hmm.
mindsets, although
Yeah.
that's kind of a foundation of it.
Yeah.
That this is much bigger than
Yeah.
just exercise and fitness and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know health.
Right.
This
Those
is
those shoulds. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think this, for both of us, it sounds like it really, the rubber hit the road, and it was like, oh, that mindfulness piece in habit change is really a hinge point. It really made all the difference for both of us.
yeah,
The awareness of what we need, the awareness of the tools, the resources, the self awareness, the other awareness, all of that, the gratitude, the curiosity, the kindness, all those elements that are skills of mindfulness have really made the difference, so that habits stick during stressful times because they're
yeah,
flexible, like you said. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's been
And
fun to kind of dive into this and look at those nuances of this, taking the stress out of habit change and what that really means.
yeah, and for me, it just creates more motivation to continue to cultivate this.
Yes.
I can't wait till the next episode of how to take the stress out of habit change and make it stick.
So use the links below to subscribe to our YouTube channels, and we'll see you on the next episode.